Hi there, welcome to Tea and Tarot. This is Skaji.
I'm Stevie.
And here we are at Books, Beans, and Candles in Birmingham, Alabama. We're missing our fearless leader, Mitchell. He's having to actually take care of the shop this evening. But we're here to talk to you about some fun tarot stuff. Wanted to let you know, though, that the in-person Tea and Tarot event's always on the first Friday night of every month. So the next one's November the 3rd.
Yes.
Also, that starts at 6:30 here at the shop. On November 4 is our public Samhain ritual, and it's a very somber kind of thing, but still a very, very fulfilling kind of event. And I think that starts at 5. So
yeah.
If it's something that interests you, it might be a good idea to get here a little early and get the feel for things. And on December the 2nd, Krampus is back in town for photographs. Always a good time. The kids love Krampus.
Spooky goat man.
Spooky goat man. We always have a good time with that. It's a great day, and you get to take pictures with Krampus. Do we have anything else you know about?
Not that I know about off the top of my head.
So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off tonight discussing the aces in the tarot.
Which end do you want to start at? That's probably a better question.
Well, for me, the aces typically refer that they're the starting place of the suits. They represent beginnings or the source. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of ephemeral or sublime take on the energy of that element of that suit.
Kind of really distilling it down to its kind of purest sense or pure stateness kind of way, and beginning to kind of, here's your beginning step, now what are you going to do with it? Here's your beginning, but like, how? Why?
And with the 4 suits, we have different takes on that starting place based on the element involved with that.
Right. So we're going to start left to right on our side. So starting with like the swords here, we have our 2 different decks represented. So mine's the slow caller and yours is...
This is the Gilded Tarot.
Yes. So you can kind of see maybe. With the Ace of Swords or the Ace of Knives, because my deck likes the remaining stuff. It's really kind of, I look at it as kind of cutting away the excess a little bit. It's a lot of that clarity, a lot of that communication, a lot of that kind of very straightforward nature of the swords. You're kind of, especially with a knife, paring away some of the excess in order to really kind of have that room and have that sort of empty space to begin doing something with that sort of creative, communicative aspect of the swords.
And the way that the card sometimes appears in readings with me is sometimes that's that active thing that we have to take hold of. Mm-hmm. And instead of the weapon aspect of a knife or a sword, it's almost that landscaping, cutting away, clearing a path, making our way through. And it's a very active kind of element.
I kind of like comparing it to like the pruning of a rose bush. You kind of have that moment where you're just like, oh God, I killed it. It's so ugly. And then you've kind of really cleared the way and kind of made way for proper growth and healthy growth. And it's not diseased anymore. A little bit of like that cutting and kind of taking back in order to create anew again.
And with our cups, that's associated with the element of water. That's that emotional side of things. And in this one, we can see that with the cycles of the moon, that full turn of that emotional oriented energy.
Mm-hmm. Whereas with like the slow caller, it's represented by like a jar filled with all these little things. It kind of almost has like this Fool's Journey-esque sort of vibe to that one, where within the jar is the distilled Fool's Journey, like the distilled journey you're on, but like we have to kind of wade through some of those emotions and kind of figure out what do we want to, we get to look at these things as opposed to necessarily having to dive headfirst into them. You get a very kind of more contained visual of those elements and of that kind of emotional dream-like state of things. But really kind of looking at it as like, is it a cup half full or a cup half empty, depending on where it presents and how it presents in the spread. You have these new beginnings in your emotions, but like, how do we begin exploring those things? How do we begin delving into those things? What do they mean? That nice dreamy kind of connotation to the cups.
And cups is also our intuitive side, that water element, as well as occasionally our spiritual side of things. And with our pentacles, in the Gilded Tarot, it's got a very geometric, very regular kind of thing to it. And that earth element has that structure, stability, persistence side to it. But it also, we see all of the green and the growth and where those things come from.
Oh, absolutely. And then you kind of compare that to the Soul Holler, where it's a very monotone card. It always strikes me as just like, the Pentacles are reliable and stable, but Jesus Christ, they are boring. Especially kind of compared to some of the other, like aces around them, or other cards in general around them. But it's reliable. You have like this stone that's being slowly worn away by water, which really kind of gently introduces that emotional element as well, but it's not being ruled by the elements so much as just, we are here and present. Looking at this new beginning that's kind of this rock solid foundation to where you're going to go next. It's kind of immovable and indomitable in certain ways, but we have to find somewhere that might not be super fun or super like chaotic or exciting and flashy, but like reliable over here is going to make sure that this first step is useful to us, that is stable for us, and is what we can hopefully need moving forward.
We've all been through times where it's just like, oh my God, I just wish it was dull today.
Yeah. The Ace of Pentacles is very much like, there you go. We have our wands.
Wands, that's that fire element in most decks. Some decks will swap the swords and the wands, but in traditional decks, it's that element of fire. That's that passion and willpower, even change itself, sometimes healing.
I've also heard it kind of, and sometimes depending again, kind of how it presents and how it's spread, being that spiritual element as well. Less so about the emotional realm and what are we kind of taking action. We felt the things, now what are we doing with those things? I really like the kind of creative aspect, not quite. I can see why people switch the elements a lot of times with like the swords and the wands, because there is kind of like the little like Venn diagram of just like where they share like little inspirational nuggets. But with the Ace of Wands, it's always just like, we've thought about it, we've ruminated it, we've communicated what we wanted to do, now like, we're gonna beat someone up with it. I like in this deck in particular, this is probably my favorite Ace of Wands out of like all the decks I've ever read from. It's a middle finger, so it really just has that like, fuck it, do it energy. Like, you've thought about it, you've been patient, you've mellowed through your feelings, so like, what else now? There's very much like that impulsive nature to the Ace of Branches that some of the other cards don't necessarily have. Which is fun
and
or chaotic.
Well, and the fire, there's nothing subtle about fire. It's even a candle flame will burn you. There's nothing subtle about it, and that's that energy, and that when we see that as the spiritual side, in the Kabbalah we talk about that as ruach. That's that spirit, that inspiration, that lights us up and drives us forward.
Right. It always kind of makes me think that when you look at like the wands, like that spiritual element of like, to be awful, like that evangelical, like very like particular type of Christianity where it's just like, it lights a fire in you. That's always what I think of, even if it's not quite spiritually where I connect anymore. That's kind of like the vibe it has of just like, it spurns something within you. So like, just do it, with the Shia LaBeouf meme. That stupid Shia LaBeouf meme.
So those are the four aces, and you can see them in a couple of different decks. Oftentimes those aces are about the beginning of things, starting off with things, and laying the cards out side by side that way lets you sort of compare and contrast and see how the different artists and the different designers approach those different concepts within the tarot. So next, I guess we'll do my spread, and then we're also doing another new thing tonight because Stevie wants us to workshop a spread together.
It's kind of a workshop, but we get to workshop it cooperatively.
So staying with what I've been doing lately, which is spreads for the season. So the last spread was the Samhain season, and it brought us into Samhain. For some folks, that's the 31st of October. For others, it's this year would be November the 6th, 15 degrees Scorpio. In the northern hemisphere, kind of changes when you go south of the equator. So beginning at Samhain and up until the winter solstice, we're in the solstice season. And so this spread is about that. Even though it's continuing to get dark, traditionally that time of year was when folks would light their fires and have their celebrations to call the sun back, to bring the sun back, because that's winter solstice is the shortest night of the year. So this spread is along those lines, considering that a lot of us have a lot of social obligations. I know for some of us it can be a very draining time. We have to meet those obligations. We also have to take care of ourselves. So instead of continuing down into the dark, this is about ways of coaxing the light back and bringing ourselves back up. So it's a nice little 6-card spread. I'm actually going to do it this way so it
kind of shows better.
Yeah. Since we're going to get all fancy schmancy. If I can think in reverse. Oh, and there's that Ace of Cups again. Who shuffled this? So the way that we start here, this is the beginning of the season. Then we come up here, we've got our social stuff. Now that can indicate where we might have troubles.
Mm-hmm.
This is advice for that. It could be, if this is a good card, advice to help us maximize that. And if it's a rough card, ways to help us mitigate it or deal with it. Then here we have our self, where we're going to deal with our own personal things. Yay, Tower. That's advice for that. And this is the end of that season. And if you look at it, you might see a little tree kind of thing where we might have the star or the light or the angel or whatever you stick on the top of your tree, representing that calling to that light to come back. So at the start of the season here, we've got the Emperor. Excuse me. And the Emperor is steady and stable. That number 4 is often an earth kind of thing. So starting off,
that Earth of Fire sort of vibe.
Yeah, we've got that sort of kind of everything's kind of in place.
Right.
Stable and steady.
The Emperor is going to be associated with astrology things. The Emperor is going to be associated with Aries, so it's very much that beginning of the zodiacal year of really kind of like setting the tone and kind of setting like, here's our goals, our aspirations, our demands sometimes, because the Emperor, and being very sort of ready to embrace and kind of engage with those things being presented before you. And
it has that sort of, okay, I've got everything laid out and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And then we come here, and this is our social stuff, and we have the Empress reversed. And in this deck, she's not as traditional as she is in other decks, but she still has a sort of introspective kind of vibe, but as this reversed card, it has the social things may not connect. They may not be easy to manage. There may be some fallowness to that if we think of the Empress as a Mother Nature kind of vibe.
Very much the this should be a time of really kind of embracing all of that kind of social network of things and really kind of doing the most and being the most and taking care of things and kind of putting it all your hands on everything. With it being reversed, it's like, you can do that, but oh my god, it's gonna drain you. It's kind of just being sapped of that energy, kind of sapped of a lot of that kind of typically positive emotional kind of ends of things, and kind of being left more bitter, it's kind of burnt out. Just like, that's so much of people, it's too much.
And so our advice for this card is the Star. And in this deck, it does have that very starlight kind of thing. And she has the traditional pouring out of 2 yours kind of thing going on. And that's that hope kind of thing, but it's also keep your focus, maintain your direction, sort of navigating by a star. So I would take these 2 together to be, it may get rough, but keep your eye on the path.
Right, especially when you look at it like the unorthodox methods that sometimes the star can employ. Especially being connected with like Aquarius astrologically, of just like you're maintaining your path and you're kind of doing your own thing and doing what needs to get done, but how you get there might deviate a little bit. It might be kind of out of the box, and it might be a little bit alien, a little bit like kind of foreign to how things have always been. But that's needed here because kind of emotionally up shit creek about it. So.
And here we have that personal stuff, and yay, the Tower. And so the Tower, I tell clients, this is the card of the really bad day.
Yeah.
And if this is our personal stuff, I can contrast that with this guy. This guy comes in and he's got all his stuff together, and then maybe we were a little too rigid here, because the Emperor can be a rigid kind of character.
Took on too much, did too
And-
much.
Yeah, and maybe it's a little bit fragile.
You kind of stacked your cards, not really acknowledging that they were, made of paper. You thought they were made of brick or something. A lot of these lofty goals and aspirations were just kind of either unrealistic or the means and ways you kind of plotted them were not wise.
And here we get with the Ace of Pentacles reversed. Well, this is advice on that. Well, maybe that's a little more of that flexibility.
Yeah.
Turning, you can also look at it as turning the soil,
Yes.
turning things up, preparing things. Okay, great, this happened. Let's prepare stuff.
Instead of maybe having a choice in it, it got forcibly turned over. So, but you can really make the best of that and kind of do something that is actually productive instead of something that maybe the Emperor would perceive as productive. Because again, you're really having to change the mindset of how you went about things. So.
And we end up with the Ace of Cups.
A little bit.
It's not off the screen. Why didn't you tell me that before now? So here we go. Who shuffled this? We got the Ace of Cups here, and it's reversed. And so at the end of the season, we still have that emotional drain.
It feels like ass, but maybe you have to kind of drain some of like the festering feelings that have been occurring throughout the season. Like, unfortunately, you got a really close up and personal sort of view and, put your hands on them and had to deal with them and touch them and, work with them. This is really kind of looking at like we've done all we can do with this, just and having to kind of pour out that cup a little bit.
And sometimes too, we have to, because the cards exist on a spectrum.
Right.
Just because it's a reversed Ace of Cups doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Yeah.
It could be it's really sucky kind of day.
Right.
But it's hard to put fresh water in a cup that's full.
Right. Maybe don't hold on to everything quite so hard.
Oh no, I spilled my cup.
You're just really lofty and like really impressive, and as far as like the tone of things. And then we're here just like, let's do a Rocky Horror.
So Stevie has a gem of an idea based on Rocky Horror, because it's Rocky Horror season as well.
It is.
And if you're not familiar with that, you really should be.
Let's do the time
warp. So we do this at Tea and Tarot sometimes, where we develop a spread together as a group. So go ahead and get us started, Steve.
So what we have thus far that I thought of in traffic on my way here, because it was long and awful. So you kind of have like the intro of, for anyone who's not seen Rocky Horror, I guess, you have like this intro of like this couple, Brad and Janet, who are kind of like the peak, like yuppie, white, conservative-ish, like couple from the 1970s. And they go to see their old, I think, college professor, Dr. Scott, and they get a flat tire on the way to his abode, and instead they go to Castle, Transylvania.
So it's got Tim Curry,
Amazing.
Susan Sarandon.
I can't remember Brad's name.
Brad. But
Meatloaf is in it.
Meatloaf is in it. It's a great thing. They start off, they are straight-laced.
Yeah.
And then they end up with Frank.
Dr. Frankenfurter.
Dr. Frankenfurter. So we're seeing a transformation from
very much so.
Conventional plain Jane, conforming.
Yes.
And a transformation through that.
Yes.
A lot of cases, finding ourselves.
Right. It's very much you kind of like interacting with someone like Dr. Frankenfurter, who is like trans and queer and like openly promiscuous, and it's very much that kind of shattering of what is very much the kind of polar opposite of just Brad and Janet, who are just two yuppies.
So let's get started. How do we start that?
So we have Brad and Janet, and that's kind of where you're starting. Like that is the metaphor.
We're going to read these together.
Yes, and I kind of view it looking ahead in the movie to see kind of Janet being what is that liberating part of things that's being tamped down, and what are the fears within Brad that are being tamped down and kind of put up with a facade, because that's kind of the tone that they strike by the end of the movie, for spoilers for like a 40 or 50-year-old movie. Then we have Dr. Frankenfurter and just the general vibe of his whole castle, because that is the thing, the switch that really flips a lot of these ideas previously held hardcore on their head. So, what do you think?
No, I'm good. Let's keep going.
Cool. Then we have, because that's a time warp. And then you kind of have, I think, oh shit, what is the song? It's just like, it's Susan Sarandon singing about like, touch me. Where it's having these experiences. Like, you had the switch moment of just being introduced to them, and so now you have Rocky, sleeping with you. You have Rocky kind of being like, here's the trigger of personal change, internal change. And then maybe a conclusion of just like, here's where you guys lie now, and having it also be 2 cards of here's how these things work. Like the freedoms get to really be free now.
Okay.
And those fears are now also free that you kind of have to really confront now that Frankenfurter's dead and they're zooming back off to transsexual Transylvania. So we have these 2 cards.
So this is these are the fears that we hide from ourselves.
Yes.
These are our desires.
Yeah.
That we also are hiding.
Right.
And so here are those things revealed and manifested. Yes. This is what opens the
catalyst.
Gates.
Yeah.
Opens the gates, and this is that which
self-realization of it. Like,
yeah.
Now I can do it. And that's how you build a spread. Let's see what they are. All right.
Shuffled your deck.
Yeah, you shuffled my deck. So the fears, this is liberation. So the liberations or the desires that we have that we can't show, we have our Ace of Stones, which is something that's actually real, something that's actually more solid, that's more reliable, that's not really manufactured or, unreliable.
And the fears, that's that. Could almost look at that as a fear of if we look at it from the intellectual side of things.
Very much having to like vocalize and actually realize those things. Like,
yeah,
it's cool that we've thought about them, but now we have to.
Now we have to communicate.
Yeah.
We have to establish. We have to find our voice.
Right.
I'm curious. What's
Frankie? In this poorly shuffled deck, it's the Ace of Wands.
So, and that's the bird finger of do you.
Yeah. Just do it. Like, there's all these things that are bubbling under the surface. You've thought about it. You've considered it. You've done whatever you need to do with it. So, like, where's the action to it? Yeah. And it is Dr. Frankenfurter just being like, here I am, and pulling back like the black velvet cape. This is going to be that 4 of Knives, so that we've gone through the catalyst of, so now here's what we're kind of beginning to do. We're taking advantage of, we're sleeping with Rocky. We have that 4 of Knives reversed, and it's very much like, we don't get that rest. There is no, which tracks for the pace of the movie, there is no real rest in this whole journey transformation forward of like all these new beginnings you're sitting on.
But the number 4 is often related to manifestation,
yes.
Making things real.
Mm-hmm. They might not be as tangible yet, certainly with that 4 of Knives being reversed, but it is very much that you might not get any rest, but it means you at least get to move things forward and begin doing these things. It's a little bit painful given what that is and kind of where it falls, because you have that 3 of Swords, naturally, numbers, that happens before it, where it's like everything just really hit the fan emotionally, intellectually, whatever. That 4 of Knives is meant to kind of soothe your soul a little bit, be like, it's okay, baby, you can rest. Here it's like, today. Mm-hmm. So as we kind of get into our transformation phase, we have that Visionary Branches and the Visionary Vessels. These are going to be the queens. So Janet turns into the Visionary Branches, which kind of was the vibe at the end of the movie, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With really like looking at all these things that you've been kind of playing with and finding something to kind of pick up and point in that direction and go forward with it. There's a lot of that kind of charismatic nature of things, that very creative, very like, I'll beautify my world however I want to, damn it, sort of vibe to it. Again, you still have that kind of vibe and that kind of forward momentum of like those branches, but it's a little more coalesced. It's not quite, we have to like speed run our way through it. It's like we found our pace and now we can march confidently in that direction.
And so those fears, the Visionary Vessels, come into grips with those.
Gotta hold them.
Yeah, come into grips with those inner feelings and emotions and bringing them out.
Right. It's very much, when you especially look at like the connotation of Rocky Horror, is just like, maybe you're not quite all these things that you had built yourself up to be, and that feels very liberating on one hand, but also terrifying on another, because now you have to come back to society. And you came from that society. You were starting out here for societal reasons, like, so it's a really kind of interesting combination of just like you're liberated and free and you feel yourself, but then also like, oh Jesus Christ, all the feelings.
I think that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much, and come and see us in person on the first Friday night of each month. The next one is November the 3rd here at Books, Beans, and Candles in Birmingham, Alabama. The in-person event is at 6:30, right upstairs. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.